Good afternoon, I'm Aaron Quartemont.
And I'm Alena Noakes. Thank you for joining us for the spring 2021 edition of the Wildcat Chat.
Although the COVID-19 pandemic has affected day-to-day life in many ways in the past year, we are beginning to see restrictions ease up and life return to some form of normalcy.
Because of that, many events have been allowed to continue, with a few modifications, of course. So we have a lot of stories to share with you today.
First up in today's press conference, Governor John Bel Edwards announced many current restrictions on businesses will be lifted, but the mask mandate remains in place, so mask up, Wildcats.
However, all college-age students are eligible to receive a COVID vaccination, regardless of pre-existing health conditions. You can register for a vaccine online at participating pharmacies or register on-site at the Rapides Parish Coliseum. Visit the Louisiana Department of Health's website for more information.
In campus news, 2 former LC students are facing federal charges for CARES Act identity theft.
According to the U.S. Attorney's Office of the Western District of Louisiana, Hayden Phillip Breaux and DeQuincy Marquise Jones were indicted by a federal grand jury as part of a scheme to steal CARES Act money from other students.
The indictment alleges that between June 5, 2020 and June 20, 2020, Breaux and Jones used LC ID numbers and passwords of 9 other students to access LC's online portal, applying for CARES Act grants in the names of those students.
They directed the grants to specific bank accounts which were controlled by members of the conspiracy.
LC accounting personnel discovered the activity and immediately reported it to law enforcement.
LC continues to support and cooperate fully with the ongoing investigation.
While LSU is currently under fire for hazing incidents in Greek life on campus, they are not the only ones.
Sometimes things like hazing, especially at LC, may seem far removed, but in this case, it's closer to home than you may think. On March 23rd, the Louisiana College women's soccer team posted to social media with a clear message. SANDA Dia deserves justice. He was described as the most caring person in the room, a boy who loved soccer and his friends and wanted nothing more than to make sure those around him were laughing and having a good time. We likely all have someone like that in our lives, but to Kayleigh Lambretch, the graduate assistant for the Wildcats women's soccer team, that person was SANDA. Kayleigh grew up on the field in Belgium playing soccer with SANDA, creating a friendship that remained strong until they went separate ways in college, Kayleigh to LSUA and SANDA to KU Leuven. But in December 2018, that friendship came to a sudden end when SANDA was killed in a tragic fraternity hazing incident.
He was very into soccer, so I'm very glad that I'm able to do all of this kind of through him and make every day count, obviously, because you never know what happens, especially with him. Him joining that fraternity I'm sure he didn't see this part coming. So it's very important for me to continue doing what I love and what he loves, kind of through him.
SANDA was a pledge to a fraternity called Rosigom, a club full of well-to-do members with important connections. According to reports, the initiation was a 2-day event. The fraternity hopefuls got drunk with no access to water. Then they were taken to a house in the middle of the woods, forced to stand in ice water in a hole they had dug for themselves.
He had to sit naked with 2 other guys in the puddle of water while drinking fish oil, swallowing a fish, and then hopefully with the fish oil it comes back up. With him it didn't happen, so what happened was he had to drink more fish oil, which is very bad for it with all the stuff in his body going on.
Hours later, when SANDA was brought to the hospital, doctors found his body temperature to be at only 82 degrees. He passed away 2 days later from multiple organ failure. At the time, the event was thought to have just been another hazing gone wrong. But SANDA's death became more suspicious when no evidence was found to tie fraternity members to the event. The New York Times speculated that a history of racism may have played a role as well.
There was an event that happened before the hazing where he got racist slurs from the people from the fraternity itself.
Though an ongoing investigation continues and no court date has been set, the university's response has been lacking.
All their parents are lawyers and in high extents, which makes it very hard to take, obviously, the right legal actions that they deserve. So the university kind of pulled their hands back and made them sign a pact for next year and suspended the fraternity. But as far as it goes to SANDA himself, they didn't do much.
After the event, involved members were instructed to write a paper on the history of hazing and given 30 hours of community service. But it wasn't until 2 years later that the university took more actions. They started a new disciplinary investigation in September 2020 after receiving more information from the criminal file, resulting in the suspension of 7 members. Luke Sells, rector of the university, took to Twitter February 4th, 2021, saying the death of SANDA Dia was a, quote, pitch-black page in the history of KU Leuven. SANDA's friends, who started an Instagram page in his honor, expressed their disappointment, writing in the page's first post on July 26, 2020, quote, "We want justice for SANDA because we believe that the KUL took all the wrong actions. We want justice because we believe in a justice system that doesn't make exceptions based on wealth or social status." SANDA's death is just one example of hazing deaths happening in fraternities all around the world. And though his passing has forced many European countries to face that reality, Kayleigh wants to make sure the message is clear in the U.S. too. And that's exactly what happened when that message appeared on masks across campus last week.
I obviously gave the mask to our girls, the women's soccer team, they all have a mask. The men's coaches have a mask. For me, I think it's just important to share his story. The reason I put it on social media is I want people to look up his story and learn from him, say his name and make sure it doesn't happen again. And that's why I started wearing this mask every day.
Monetary donations from the mask have also gone toward helping ease the burden of legal fees for SANDA's family.
LC is known for hosting guest organizations on campus for many events, from community concerts to wedding receptions. You probably don't know any of the people who are at these events, or even what they're all about.
But when legislative and community leaders met in Granbury Hall on March 29th for the North Rapids Business Industry Alliance, what they discussed directly affects you.
The meeting allowed community leaders to give updates and progress reports. New local business owners introduced themselves, and educational institutions like CLTCC and LSUA talked about plans for the future.
But the real takeaway from the meeting came from the keynote speaker, Kayleigh Lambretch, Speaker of the House of Representatives for the Louisiana Legislature.
Lambretch was lobbying for House Bill 199, a law which will create a centralized sales and use tax.
But this tax is not a tax at all. It's actually a system used to efficiently collect taxes that are already being paid.
Right now, we don't have a centralized tax collection to be able to collect out-of-state internet sales. We have a piece that we tried to piecemeal together to collect this with remote sellers, but it really didn't solve our problem. We still have entities out there that those tax dollars just aren't coming to us.
Currently, Louisiana is one of the only 2 states without a centralized tax situation.
Essentially, the money collected by companies with sales tax stays with the companies instead of flowing back into the state.
HB 199 creates a portal that will collect the taxes that go to big companies like internet sales, ensuring that the taxes paid will get distributed back out into the state.
Our constituents, our people, our businesses here are paying it, and we're not gaining from it. The one thing that we hear every year as legislators is, how do we fund this? What do we do? Do we pass a tax? We don't have to pass a tax. What we have to do is fix the problem.
At the first C3 conference of the semester, LC welcomed special guest speaker Dana Harris, who spoke about religious rights in the time of COVID-19.
As a regional director of the Alliance for Defending Freedom, Harris spoke on the legal role in the organization that has played in defending religious liberty, specifically in churches during the pandemic. Churches from across the nation have faced scrutiny and harsh government restrictions, in many cases making congregations stop gathering altogether.
As the calls began pouring in, Harris and the ADF got to work. In one case, a church contacted the ADF because their members were ticketed $500 apiece for being at a drive-in worship service.
The state had restrictions on gathering sizes, but the service in question was being held outside, with members sitting in their vehicles listening to the sermon over a radio station. To receive their citations, churchgoers had to roll down their windows.
We explained to them that they can't treat churches differently than they treat other entities, other businesses. And in the end, we won, and all of those fines were thrown out, and nobody had to pay that, and the church could continue to have drive-in worship services.
So far, the ADF has helped 3,200 churches and have won 82% of their cases.
As part of another cultural credit opportunity, students attended the lecture of Dr. J.W. Richard, who discussed the Christian case for free enterprise. Darrell Brown gives us a look at what Richards had to say.
Louisiana College held its annual God in the Workplace lecture series with special guest speaker J.W. Richards. His theme was Money, Greed, and God, the Christian case for free enterprise.
Free enterprise, as I'm defining it, is an economic and political system that has the rule of law. So this is not everybody does whatever he wants to do in his own eyes, right? That's anarchy. Free enterprise requires a rule of law in which you have a functioning state that can enforce the rule of law, but the state is not so large that it becomes a violator of the rule of law. A culture in which individuals have embedded, at least partly in their hearts, law-like and virtuous behavior.
Richards was originally supposed to speak in 2020, however, COVID prevented his appearance.
I came to Louisiana College because I was invited to talk about God in the workplace. I was actually supposed to come in 2020 to talk about my book, Money, Greed, and God, but COVID happened and the lockdown happened, so we had to delay it a year. So it's just a delight for me to finally be able to get down here.
Even some LC staff members were impressed with J.W. Richards' message to the students.
We need to truly understand the definitions of socialism and communism. I think those of us who are older understand that, but I'm not confident that our student body totally does. And the challenge with that has to do with how it's been taught.
When J.W. Richards finished speaking, numerous students had questions to ask, and he hopes they take a few things away from his talk.
If I could say there's one thing I want people to take away from the talk is that Christians, if they want to help people, need to have not just a heart for the poor, but a mind for the poor. We need to know not just that we care about our fellow human beings, but what economic policies and systems are best for actually lifting people out of poverty.
It's an event that gets the whole community involved. And if you know anything about ex-NFL quarterback Tim Tebow, you know it's for a cause at the focus point of his ministry. It's always a party like no other. For the last 5 years, Calvary Baptist Church has partnered with the Tim Tebow Foundation, putting on their annual Night to Shine event for the local special needs community. The church usually rolls out the red carpet, taking guests on a limo ride around the parking lot before they enjoy a night of dancing, frequent trips to the fondue fountain, and karaoke. Due to COVID-19, the event was forced to make some major adjustments, turning the normal prom night into a drive-through celebration with volunteers lining the outside of the building to cheer them on.
Oh my word, it's changed it so much, because usually we would have a big event here in the building. We would match people up with buddies. It would be all about connecting interpersonally. And this year, one of the things that we've had to make really clear in talking with our honored guests is that's not what this is going to be. They have to stay in their car. So it's not going to be what it was, but at the same time, hopefully it's going to be a big, big splash of color in an otherwise kind of gray year.
And that colorful night was certainly not dampened by the pandemic, as joyful laughs mixed with the sound of drum lines and cheers of more than 200 volunteers. Calvary welcomed 65 guests to this year's celebration, and volunteers included several Louisiana College athletic teams and marching band.
My favorite part of the event had to be when the kids would pass by and smile so big and just seeing their reaction and how excited they would get.
At the end of the night, guests were given gift bags with corsages, crowns, and a red carpet to use on February 12th during the Tim Tebow Foundation's virtual nationwide Night to Shine event.
This is so much more than just Calvary. This really is the community coming together to make sure that people with challenges know that they're seen, that they're loved and appreciated, and that we're just so glad they're part of our community as well.
Calvary is looking for volunteers to help continue the special needs ministry outside of the once-a-year event.
Interested students can see Dr. Scott Picard in the History Department for more information about how to get involved.
You've probably heard their performances at multiple events, including the music department's spring concert and Sinlaw's pro-life rally. But this semester, Elsie's Gospel Choir put on a production for Black History Month that brought the whole community.
The Louisiana College Gospel Choir is an old but fairly new program added back into the student life of LC. Caius Washington is the student directing this brand new choir. The choir began rehearsing every Friday since the spring semester started up until their premiere concert on February 23rd.
Originally there was a gospel choir that started out in the fall of 2018 under the direction of Sister Mary Robertson, and Dr. Darrell wanted to revamp that. so he reached out to Darrell Phillips, who's the SGA president, and he reached out to me because he knows that I have a good amount of, say-so in gospel music and choir directing and all that. And it just kind of happened just like that.
With Caius leading the charge, this choir was ready for a performance of a lifetime.
Tree of life and the lily of the valley. The geologists call him the Rock of Ages. Astronomers will call him the bright morning star. Bakers will call him the bread of life.
There are a lot of good things to say about this group, however, I'll let you hear that for yourself.
Something that came out of this gospel choir really, really great that I cherish is the friendships made. I knew a lot of the people in this choir already. It not only allowed us to strengthen the bonds that we already had, but it allowed us to make new relationships with others through worshiping God.
This is Darrell Brown with Wildcat's Media News.
Though LC was not able to welcome its usual crowd of alumni, homecoming celebrations were allowed to continue with a few modifications.
Students were still able to vote on homecoming court and crown a homecoming king and queen.
This year's court included freshmen Bethany Newton and Camille Swallow, sophomores Josie Holt, Maddie McDowell, and Ashley Young, juniors Gracie Bryant and Ariel Webster, and seniors Jordan Holt, Sajin An, and Emmy Kugel. Emmy Kugel was crowned the 2021 homecoming queen. The student body crowned Mac May king at Homecoming Honey prior to the court presentation.
And to top it all off, LC football went head-to-head against rival ETBU, taking back the coveted Border Claw. For more on that and all LC athletics, we'll throw it to Darrell in the Den TV.
Hey Wildcats, D. Brown here with the Den TV. It's been a season of change for the Wildcats, both unwanted and unexpected. From the spring 2020 season ending to all sports beginning a year later has brought on change like no other. However, our Wildcats never wavered or threw in the towel. They kept pushing until the end, even with the ups and downs of a shortened season. Speaking of the end, this will be LC's last year in the NCAA and will begin to transition into the NAIA, giving an opportunity for our athletes to accomplish a feat like no other, receiving scholarships. The move will be official as of July 1st, 2021. Football will be leaving the American Southwest Conference and move into the Sooner Athletic Conference. All other sports will be heading into the Red River Athletic Conference, and our friendly rivalry with LSUA can officially start. We have called the American Southwest Conference our home the last 21 years. Thank you for allowing LC Athletics to shine. Change is a part of life, and our football and soccer programs begun the year off with new head coaches. Andrew Maddox, a former Wildcat and DC for LC, took over the football program and brought it to new heights. He led the Wildcats to a 2-3 record and grabbed the Border Claw back from the ETBU Tigers in his first game as head coach. Freshman running back Devon Briscoe led the Wildcats with 681 rushing yards, 4 TDs, and 6.8 yards a carry this season. Sophomore quarterback Sal Palmero finished with 706 yards in the air and 8 TDs. Sophomore Leon Cannon led with 24 catches for 245 yards and 4 TDs. Last but not least, your defensive captain, Julius Johnson, led the team with 39 tackles, 3 sacks, and 1 interception on the year. These Wildcats are just getting started. To top it all off, they signed over 70 freshmen on signing day. Here's Coach Maddox with what's to come for LC football.
The biggest thing is they fight. They fight. They will not quit. We've been in every game that we've played this year, and so that's the biggest deal right now. We just got to get to a culture of winning more days. You know, it's not just on Saturday you show up. So we'll have to get better at practicing harder.
Carla Tejas, the new women's head coach, finished with a 0-4 record, but that does not mean she has not made an impact. Once she got the nod to be the head woman in charge, she brought in 8 new players for this Lady Wildcats team, as well as travel internationally across the United States to recruit for next year's NAIA squad.
One of the main things that we have seen this year is the change of our culture and also a change in our fitness. When I got here, there were many areas that we needed to improve, and of course I need to find the ones that I can improve quickest, and the quickest one was getting fit. Now for the girls to get fit, it took a change of mindset, being an athlete mindset, and their nutrition, and I think all of that helped us to have a good season, even though it wasn't the results that we're looking for. Overall, I think we had an amazing season. We played with 11 most of the games, and we fought really well. The team is really hard to score on us, but these girls, with the changes that have made, I look forward for next season. Having a winning season, that's the main step. Our first goal is to go to playoff. Now, our roster from 14 girls is going to 35. That's one of the main things that we're going for, or size. We have us now 18 girls committed. That says a lot because they're coming to us because what they have seen for the season that we just had. And that's because the team, it's the girls that are putting all the work and the people talking about them.
Castillo's men's program won their first match of the season to end the NCAA era with a conference win against ETVU.
I've been hard on them maybe for the last 6 months, and I know sometimes I was too hard. The guys hated me. Maybe some guys were angry, but they see now that the culture's changing. These guys are buying in. The culture change, the shock that they're getting now, it's going to be a regular thing come next season.
Freshman Arturo Ristra scored a hat trick with a 3-goal match, the first one for the Wildcat since 2012.
Oh, it's amazing news. I promise that the next season will be something usual, and we have to keep working on it, and it will be nice the next season.
Brilliant. And I've got Coach Castillo here to give you the match ball. Here he comes. Congratulations, Arturo. Well done.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Yeah, y ganamos.
Vamos.
Ganamos más. Siguiente año nos vamos.
Women's basketball was one game short of making a postseason run, finishing with a 3-6 overall record and 2-6 in conference. Sophomore Alex Harrison was named to the All-East Division second team, and freshman Olivia Scott was named to the East Division All-Freshman team. Men's basketball went on a historic run to the ASC Conference Finals while defeating number 10 Mary Hardin Baylor in the semifinal game. The Cats came up short, but it was a good season nonetheless. Karan Baker was named the all-time career leader in ASC history for three-point percentage. He was also named to the All-ASC tournament team, All-Conference, and East Division first team. With over 1,200 points scored, Baker is also number 2 in all-time scoring for LC. Galen Smith Jr. was named East Division Co-Newcomer of the Year and East Division first team. Ferrante Banks earned a spot on the East Division All-Defensive team. While those seasons have ended, we still have some that are still going. Softball has a 9-12 record overall and 4-5 in conference. They are currently 3rd in the East Division and are looking to climb up. Baseball is on fire with a 16-3 record overall and 12-0 in conference, with a 6-game win streak on the line and are on top of the conference. The men's golf team placed 10th at the Battle for the Belt March 8th and 9th. The team is set to host a Wildcat Invitational at Links on the Bayou in Alexandria. And last but certainly not least, Wildcat Tennis will travel to UT Dallas on April 2nd for their first match of the season. That's your overall sports update now, but check back later for more. This is Darrell Brown with the Den TV. Back to you at the desk.
Last week, Theater Louisiana College took to the stage to perform The Red Velvet Cake War, a Southern comedy about a dysfunctional family. The show was a last bow for many of its strong female leads, including graduating senior Reagan Ruber.
Wearing a lampshade on your head is just the way to do that.
Theater Louisiana College's performance of The Red Velvet Cake Wars was this past week. This comedic show brought crowds of people and lots of laughter. But with laughter came tears because for one of the members in the cast, she was performing her last show. I sat down with Reagan Ruber, a senior theater major, to discuss the bittersweet moments of a senior's last performance.
I just performed my last show as a student at LC ever, and that is after 5 years as a student and 2 years in high school before that, so 7 years in this department, and I have to say goodbye, which is really hard.
For the past 7 years at Theater Louisiana College, Ruber said she has grown tremendously as a student, an actress, and as a person. But she said she couldn't have done it without her professor, Tabitha Huffman.
She has constantly pointed us all towards Christ and how to be our best versions of ourselves and to not let us live and be led by our emotions, and to trust and to have faith and to love each other and to not be scared to be ourselves and who God made us to be.
Along with help from her professor, Ruber says that having her fellow seniors' friendships have made her college years some of the best years of her life.
I had the privilege to act alongside my fellow seniors, Maddie Pearson, Hannah Wagner, Samantha O'Banion, and Jalen Miracle in this, our final show. They all have taught me so much about myself.
Ruber says she could not be more thankful for the memories this theater has given her and is excited to see what is in store for her after graduation. But for now, the curtains have closed, and it is time for Reagan Ruber and her fellow seniors to take their final bow and begin a new show called Life. For Wildcats Media News, I'm Aaron Quartemont. Here on the Hill, we like to have a little fun every once in a while, and the party is all the more fun when it involves the colors purple, green, and gold.
It's Louisiana living. The sights are colorful, the smells mouth-watering, and the sounds keep the good times rolling. There may be lots of pine trees and no swamps, but that doesn't mean Louisiana College doesn't know how to Mardi Gras.
Mardi Gras is a party, so we like to host parties and have fun, so that's why we put it on, so we can all experience a little home of Louisiana right here.
The Cajun tradition is celebrated all across the state, no matter if Creole heritage is in your blood or not. And the thing that makes it most appealing? Well, that would be the food. At LC, Union Board puts on a Sin-Law-style Café du Monde, taking students to the Portside New Orleans market with hot coffee and freshly powdered beignets. But, as anyone from Louisiana would tell you, it's not the food, beads, or Zydeco hits that make Mardi Gras special.
It's a fun time to hang out with friends and just enjoy being in Louisiana and having fun in the South, you know, it's a good time.
But rather the laughs
That was awesome.
and stories shared between friends.
It's just everybody's here to have fun, you know. We're just here bonding with everybody, you know, just out here having a good time.
Before we go, do you remember that random ice storm in February that sent students home for a week, shut down the entire eastern part of Texas, and had a recorded temperature of 1 degree? Yeah, we do too.
So to close out the show, we'll take a look at what your Convergence Media Department's production team put together from that historic week.
Thank you for joining us for the Wildcat Chat. I'm Alena Noakes.
And I'm Aaron Quartemont.
I'll see you later.